of Yaakov, how that continues in the lives of the Jewish people. And now we're going to see how this has connected to the 10th of Tevis, which is today. The 10th of Tevis is unique among the 4 fasts that were established by our sages. The sages established 4 fasts. The first fast was the 10th of Tevis, commemorating when the king of Babylonia laid siege to Jerusalem. He erected a tower and his armies around it, and no one could enter, no one could leave for 2.5 years. And he so weakened the Jewish people that he was able to attack them. When did he finally breach the wall of Jerusalem? That was in the 17th of Tammuz. And 17th of Tammuz, by both the first and second temple, according to some opinions, was both temples. That's when the walls were breached, and he entered into Jerusalem. And finally, the temple was destroyed on the 9th of Av. The 9th of Av was the destruction of both the first and second temple, many other calamities. And then the 3rd of Tishrei is when the last chance of a monarchy of the Jewish people, when Gedaliah, when Achikam, who was appointed by Nebuchadnezzar as the leader of the Jewish people, when he was killed, that was the last vestige of any sense of monarchy of the Jewish people. The language of the Rambam is the remaining coal of the Jewish people was extinguished. So this fast, as I think I mentioned yesterday, is considered more weighty than all the others. As Abu Ram says, that this fast, if it would fall out, and as it did, fall out on Shabbos when the calendar was set up according to people witnessing the new moon, so then this fast would push off Shabbos. And this is because the Torah uses expression on that very day. And that same expression on that very day was used about Yom Kippur. Since Yom Kippur the Torah says that very day, so we can't push off Yom Kippur. So similarly, you can't push off the 10th of Tevis. If it falls out on Shabbos, you fast on Shabbos, which is not like the 9th of Av. 9th of Av, which is more severe than 10th of Tevis in many ways. 9th of Av is a fast which begins at night. There are 5 things which are forbidden on the 9th of Av, like Yom Kippur. And yet this fast is considered to be more severe. So why is it more severe? So the simple reason why it's more severe is because although nothing happened yet, no calamity happened yet, the walls of Jerusalem are standing there, they're perfect, they're whole, Jewish people are whole, everything is going fine. But the issue is that the first seed of the destruction of the temple began today. It was the beginning of the destruction of the temple. The temple eventually was destroyed 2.5 years later, but at what point did this begin? You could trace at 9th of Av to the 10th of Tevis. So that's why it's considered such a day of calamity that we want to rectify, because it is the seed of the destruction of the temple. However, on the other hand, the Rambam says that Mashiach will come, all the fast days will become days of holidays, days of Yantiv, because we'll see the inner meaning of these days. But a beautiful explanation, I think it's from, I'm not sure who it's from. It's that we say in davening every day, Ein Sur Kelokenu, there's no rock like our God. It's from the beginning of Shmuel, chapter 2, verse 2. And the Gemara comments this and says there's no one as great of an artist as our God. The simple meaning is there's no one as great as a rock, the one we rely on as Hashem. The deeper meaning is no one as great of an artist as Hashem. What's the connection between a rock and an artist? What does that mean? There's a story told about this king who made a contest among all these artists to see who was the best artist. And one artist, all the artists were invited to go into the courtyard of the king and to put up their easels and their canvases and to draw in the kingdom. One artist was so successful that he made a drawing of some grass trees and birds and fruits, and birds came to eat from the fruits of the that he had painted. So the king said, "Oh, this is the winner. This is the winner." So what is that? What does that mean? What's a good artist? They got that, and it's running by, and yet it's a powerful. A powerful artistry of Hashem. Hashem has made this very, very strong picture of the truth. In a similar way, the 10th of Tevis. On the one hand, externally, this is the worst day. It's a day which begins all the calamities. On the other hand, the Alter Rebbe says, when the Jewish people fast, even if one person fasts, that day is considered a day for him at a time of divine grace and mercy. Because he's fasting, he's able to Hashem is especially receptive to him, and so much more so when the Jewish people together, we all fast together. It's a time of divine grace and mercy, and Hashem listens to us. So not only will be a Yom Tov when Mashiach comes, it's already considered a day of divine grace. Hashem especially listens to us because it's a day that's meant to evoke in our hearts teshuvah. As Rabbi Cashapp told his son, the previous Rebbe, fasting isn't about losing weight. It's not about darin zich. It's something which is meant to change something in us, or not change. Tshuva means to return to who we really are. So, what specifically is it meant to do? So, the Rebbe said on other occasions that the 10th of Tevis is unique in that nothing happened. Well, only the thing that happened was that we couldn't go anywhere. So, the idea of not being able to go anywhere is very important when considering that the destruction of the temple was about senseless hatred. So how do you rectify senseless hatred? Psychologists say very often, you have a family, doesn't get along, no one's fighting, what do? Bring them all into a room, lock the door, we're going to figure this out. So similar way, the purpose of the 10th of Tevis was in order to get us all together, to talk it over, and to look at each other, and to smile eventually. That was the goal. So Hashem made this king, and he made this siege, and it looked like it was all this about destruction, about hurting us. Well, really, it's only that's just the facade. That's just Hollywood. The real purpose of this is we should all get along better. That was what the 10th of Tevis was about. So the 10th of Tevis, because it's about the coming of Mashiach, and it's about, and in the way it has more of a calamitous, is that right word? Is that a word in English?
Yes.
It's more of a calamitous thing because it's beginning of the destruction. Conversely, it is the greatest also in the sense, it's more of a celebration on this thing than any other fasts. And ever since, it's unbelievable. There's 9 months from the 10th of Tevis to the 9th of Av. The 9th of Av is the time when Mashiach is born. That's when Hashem made it possible for the Geula to happen. When was Mashiach conceived? Mashiach was conceived on the 10th of Tevis. So it means today is a day when the possibility of everlasting goodness and happiness was created. So it looks like the opposite, but on the other hand, the whole purpose of Hashem making this day was in order to make Mashiach come. I can't find the source. I saw this, I'm positive I saw this, but I don't know where it is. I saw that the Baal Shem Tov's father, Rabbi Lezer, he met a malach or something on the night of when the Baal Shem Tov was conceived. What night was that? It was the 19th of Kislev. 19th of Kislev was 9 months before the 8th of Elul when Baal Shem Tov was born. Anyways, so this is today is the 19th of Kislev of the celebration of the 9th of Av. 9th of Av is the time of the coming Mashiach, birth of Mashiach. When is that conceived? That's conceived today. So there's something more positive in today than any other fast. This is the seed of Mashiach, the conception of Mashiach. So there's something specific about the 10th of Tevis, and how we see this is a day which is very positive. Let's go on page Chaf, on Neis Daled. Let's see the specific events of the 10th of Tevis and how they relate to the everlasting goodness to come Mashiach. We could explain more about the unique significance of the 10th of Tevis, both in reference to how it is the beginning of the destruction of the temple, and more importantly, how it is relevant to the beginning of the Geula and beginning of the building of the temple. Gel Motza Yushalayim Baser B'Teves Mesinim Revuis Cheskel V'Atacha Machva Kachcha Machvas Barzel Sate Say Kir Barzel Bein Chavein Ir Gamer V'Hoysem Motza Gamer Oisil Beis Yisrael Shakach Tavi Yushalayim Motza. God told Yecheskel, Ezekiel, I want you to take a brick, engrave upon this brick a image of Jerusalem, and around this brick I want you to take a skillet and put that skillet between you and this city that you have drawn, and that should be as a, and you should besiege the city. The city is besieged. You're putting this iron wall between you and the city. The city is besieged, and that's a sign of what's going to happen to Jewish people. I can go proceeded to tell Yecheskel exactly what's going to happen. Lie on your right side, lie on your left side. This amount of time is how much you should lie on your side, because this amount of time they're going to be in exile. So the point that we see though is that Hashem tells him what's the sign of the siege, the iron wall. So the iron wall is very relevant, as we'll see. When Hashem told them to put the skillet there as an iron wall, he wasn't only alluding to the siege, but also to the destruction of the Bais Hamikdash. The Bais Hamikdash, the temple, is exactly the opposite, or there is no room for iron in the Bais Hamikdash. Torah says that God commanded that when you build the house of Hashem out of stones, no hammers should be used, no iron tools should be used in the Bais Hamikdash itself. Because the iron is related to the destruction of the Bais Hamikdash. Isa Medrash, Zeisa Truma, Zeisa Avches and Cheshes, Abal Barzel, Eng Sivkan, Leik Mishkal Mikdash, Lav Shabay Adam, Shemay Adam Shachri Bais Hamikdash. The Bais Hamikdash is built from silver and gold and copper, but doesn't mention any iron. No iron, not in the tabernacle, and not in the Bais Hamikdash. Why is there no iron used? Why silver, gold, copper, yes, but no iron? Because iron is associated with the sword, with the sword, with the Romans, with the Edom, with the country of Edom, with the people of Edom, who destroyed the Bais Hamikdash. So therefore, there cannot be any iron in the Bais Hamikdash. So when Hashem told Yecheskel, put this iron skillet, and this should stand between you and the city, it wasn't just a sign of the siege around Jerusalem, it was also a sign of the destruction, because iron is opposite of the Bais Hamikdash. Bais Hamikdash is about peace, and this is about the opposite. So the sign of iron is not just a sign of the siege, it's a sign of the destruction. How do you fix the iron? So just like the iron is a sign of destruction, so too iron is also a sign, in the positive sense, positive, good iron, is good metal, is a sign of the coming Mashiach. How so? How do you rectify the iron that destroyed the Bais Hamikdash? The Barzel de Kedusha, through iron, through holy iron. Amar Chazal, Kol Talmid Chacham she'eino kosher b'kabarza in Talmid Chacham. The Gemara says if there is a Torah scholar who is not as hard as iron, he is not a Torah scholar. It says about Israel is a country that its stones are iron. And the Talmud explains, don't say that its stones are iron, say that its builders are made of iron. It means the Torah scholars, who are called the builders of Jerusalem, what are they about? They're about iron. What's the meaning of being about iron? That's about being stubborn in a positive sense, being stubborn like iron. This is referring to the strength and the power of the essence of the soul. There is the stubbornness of the Yetzer Hara and the stiff-neckedness of the Yetzer Hara. Being stiff-necked, like in today's Yom Yom, you probably saw Yom Yom today. Tzemach Tzedek was talking to someone who complained that everyone was stepping on him in the shul. And the Tzemach Tzedek told him, you're spreading yourself out over the whole shul. When anyone steps, they're stepping on you. Then the Tzemach Tzedek said, it says in the pasuk, Yaziv Rasha Darke Ishmach Shvesav. A wicked man shall leave his path, and a man of iniquity shall leave his thoughts. So the Baal Shem Tov said, the Tzemach Tzedek said, just like it's obvious that a wicked man has to leave his path, so to a Ish Avin. Ish Avin means a man of iniquity. But oin also means a man of strength, a man of iron, in other words, like we're learning. A man who says, this is the way I want it to be. It says the Tzemach Tzedek, every I is a source of evil and a separation of people and causes a separation of hearts. I isn't a good thing. Mokar kol min ra, it's a source of all evil. All evil is from the I. So that's iron in the negative sense. Then there's iron in the positive sense. The eye of the neshama. So the Tzemach Tzedek told this guy, you have to leave this I, the ichiness. Ich in Yiddish is ich, your ichiness. Leave your ichness, and you have to let go of that. So in a similar way that a wicked person has to leave his path, if you're doing the wrong things, you have to stop. So in a similar way, it's just as important that you leave your ichiness. So in a similar way, we're learning now that there's another kind of eye, the eye of the neshama. The neshama, the neshama's eye is the eye of godliness, the eye of the truth, the eye of kindness, the eye of the opposite of the eye of klippa. And the way to rectify the stubbornness of the evil inclination, the iron of the evil, is through stubbornness and the iron of holiness. It means that Shaykh Miyuchan, see further inside. Shaykh Miyuchan Servativus is very relevant to the 10th of Tevis. There was a siege. The siege didn't hurt anybody. They didn't hurt. No one was killed. No one was taken captive on the 10th of Tevis. It wasn't like the 17th of Tammuz, the 9th of Av. Nobody got hurt. No one was taken captive. Not even the walls weren't even breached. So the purpose of the siege was that people should do tshuva and everything should stay okay. Everything should stay perfect. On a personal level, or in the service of God, what's the meaning of having the walls intact? That means that there is a protection for keeping the Torah perfectly. You're able to keep the Torah perfectly, and there's no breach in your observance of Torah. Not only was the initial siege for the purpose of us doing tshuva and things should stay intact, but even the eventual destruction of the Beis HaMikdash through the iron of the opposite of holiness. What was the purpose of that iron? That iron was in order to bring us to the coming of Mashiach, which is connected to iron as well. The third Beis HaMikdash is connected to iron in a positive sense. How is the third Beis HaMikdash connected to iron? Isa Medrash, Zav v'Chesed v'Chesed sem connected Avis Avram Yaakov. The Medrash says that Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are compared to gold, silver, and copper. Zav is like Avram is compared to gold. Cashapp is like Yitzchak, and the Chesed is Yaakov. Silver is Isaac, is Yitzchak, and the Chesed and copper is Yaakov, is Jacob. Pia Yedua. So if the three temples correspond to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, it says that each of the patriarchs visited the Temple Mount, and each of them had a different name for the Temple Mount. Avram called it a mountain, Mount Moriah. Yitzchak went out in the field to pray, the field, also the same place, and Yaakov called it a home. So they are talking about not just the place, the Temple Mount, but three temples. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are connected to three temples, and Yaakov is connected to the third temple. That's why he called it a house, because it's something that will last forever. So based on this, we could say that gold, silver, and copper also are parallel to three temples. The first temple is associated with gold, the second with silver, and the third with copper. Why? Next page. And the copper in Hebrew is associated with the snake. The root of the word copper is snake, which is evil. And the way to rectify the evil is through Yaakov. Yaakov's essence is about Torah, and through Torah to rectify the copper of Klippa. And how is this rectified perfectly and transformed in the third Beis HaMikdash, which corresponds to Yaakov. There's Gmana Golos, Achom Mesesheni, Ilu Hashem is based on Shashish, Shemus Mugabiru, the Barzal Umazeh, and Gam Nochesha, today's the Baim Hashem is the Barzal Gusha. We could add to this and say more. There's copper and there's metal. Copper is about the circumstances of exile. The temple's destroyed, but the perfection of the third Beis Hamikdash is not only about elevating copper, it's elevating something lower than copper, less value, which indicates which represents something which is even lower, elevating and rectifying and transforming the iron of evil, the iron of Klippa. And specifically through rectifying the iron of evil, do we come to the iron of holiness. Okay. Zav v'chesed choishes im seidel ma'il mata. Zav v'mufshu v'chiyes kesel matam zav choishes matam gam kesef. In value, gold is more important than silver, and silver more important than copper. Ruz gam mashteves shalom zav rashteves edes in bore kesef rashteves kesef chos pachat v'choishes rashteves in sinus choishes amtnu. It says that giving charity brings salvation, but it depends when you give the charity. It's possible to give the charity when everything's going fine. Then the charity is considered as valuable like gold. That's why gold, when you're stuck and you're sick, the analogy of the three temples which correspond to silver and copper. Gold is connected to the first temple, where things are perfect, health. Silver refers to the second temple. Things are missing in the second temple. They're missing 5 things in the second temple didn't have that they had in the first temple. That's why silver stands for when there is a fear of danger, that maybe the whole temple will be destroyed again. They're missing 5 things, and so there was a constant fear. They're missing 5 things, so maybe we'll lose the whole thing. So that was the atmosphere. The second temple, it was silver, it was a fear of danger. And copper, which is lower than silver and gold, that refers to the time of the exile. That because we don't have the Bais Hamikdash, the Jewish people are like a sick person who says to give. What do we ask him to give? We're asking Hashem to give us the third Bais Hamikdash. We are in a state of sick, we're not healthy spiritually, and we say give. To give Hashem, give us, when you give someone a gift, you give with an good eye, give us a third Bais Hamikdash. Give us the Bais Hamikdash that you will build by your hands that will last forever. So we'll see that the eternity of the third Bais Hamikdash is connected to elevating the iron of evil, transforming after the first Bais Hamikdash and the second Bais Hamikdash we destroyed. There'll be a third Bais Hamikdash which will last forever. This third Bais Hamikdash is associated with iron of holiness. I'm sorry, what do you want to say?
Yeah, with the same logic, why the first Beit HaMikdash is compared to Zahav, which is complete, but it was destroyed. Everything was there.
It doesn't say it's forever. It was perfect at the time. It doesn't say it'll last. It's specifically through the descent in the Golos that there is a everlasting Geula. So what's this idea of iron in a holy sense that allows the Bais Hamikdash to last forever? On the surface, we learned so far is that iron and evil means to be stubborn and not do what Hashem wants you to do, stubborn and not do it, and not listen to other people. And then there is being stubborn to do what Hashem wants you to do, no matter despite whatever's going on. That's how you build a Bais Hamikdash. The stubbornness of Jewish people in exile, the stubbornness of the Neshama. But there's more. Barzel stands for Bilha, Rachel, Zilpa, and Leah. What was that again, Dr. Pressman? Bilha, Rachel, Zilpa, and Leah. The 4 wives of Yaakov, the mothers of the 12 tribes, and corresponding to these 4 sources of holiness, the 4 sources of the Jewish people, there are also 4 levels of the opposite of holiness, 4 sources of the opposite of holiness, which are the opposite of the 4 mothers, 4 matriarchs. So we'll learn more about the difference between the 4 matriarchs and how that has to do with iron tomorrow. But just for today, let's just recap what we did today. We started off and we said that the fast of Tevis was hinted to Yecheskel with iron, and we explained why iron was used. So iron means to be stiff-necked, and iron is something which can't be used in the Bais Hamikdash. So iron represents something which is there's no room for it in holiness. It's something which kedusha, the Bais Hadish, can handle, can have. It's something which doesn't belong there. It belongs to the opposite. So if iron is about the opposite of holiness, about the opposite of Beis Hamikdash, so when Hashem told Yecheskel this is a sign of the destruction, he wasn't just alluding to Beis Hamikdash being he wasn't just alluding to the siege. He was also alluding to there not being a Beis Hamikdash, that there is a destruction of Beis Hamikdash. And so that's very in sync with the Tenth of Tevis. As we learned, the Tenth of Tevis is not just the calamity of the siege; it's also the seed for the destruction. But just like the Tenth of Tevis is considered such a tragedy because it was the seed of destruction, so too in the positive sense, the Tenth of Tevis is also 9 months before the 9th of Av. It's when Hashem, so to speak, brought the conception of Mashiach. Mashiach is born 9 months later. So there's something about the events of the 10th of Tevis which are relevant to the everlasting Gula of Mashiach. And what is it? It's the idea of iron. Iron is not just a negative thing. Iron is a positive thing. That a Jew has a stubborn and stiff-necked attachment to Hashem, and because of this, the Eibishter salachta. The Eibishter forgives us and brings Gula. So it has to do with our being not letting go, despite all the darkness, despite all the confusion. He doesn't let go of the Eibishter. And we learned that this is associated with the three patriarchs who correspond to 3 temples. Avnitz and Yaakov correspond to silver, gold, and copper, and Yaakov elevates the lowest kind of metal, but not just metal, not just copper. Yaakov elevates barzel, which is which represents the nethermost, the opposite, diametrically opposed to holiness. And the third Beis Hamikdash, which is given to us through Yaakov, we will have the elevation not just of copper, but elevation of the siege around Jerusalem, the elevation of the iron. And that's why the Beis Hamikdash, the third Beis Hamikdash, will be a stubborn Beis Hamikdash. Will be a Beis Hamikdash that lasts forever. All
right.
Questions, comments?
How come before you said that between the first temple and the second temple, if it falls on Shabbos, they will fast.
Yeah.
But how come today doesn't fall on Shabbos?
Because the calendar was set up by Hillel in a way that can't fall on Shabbos.
Oh.